the 2000 block of Regas Store Road. Deputies responded. Thankfully, more than 2 officers responded. 2 went to the side of the house and 2 went to the front door. Officers knocked on the front door or made approach to the front door. A subject by the name of James Briam, 52 years old, comes out the back door armed with a pistol, confronts my deputies, fires his firearm. The deputies responded with gunfire, and at this time the defendant is at Wake Med in stable condition. The deputies have been placed on administrative leave, and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations is conducting the criminal aspect of the investigation, and Nash County Sheriff's Office is conducting the internal investigation at this time.
Sheriff Stone, were you attempting to serve a warrant or just responding to a call that there was a domestic in progress?
It was a warrant call that the magistrate had issued a warrant after the domestic had got heated, and deputies, while getting the warrant at the magistrate's office, I think that they overheard the conversation between the husband and the estranged wife, knew it was a volatile situation, and thankfully we had 2 other officers in the area and they responded because it was basically an ambush type situation.
We have talked numerous times in the past regarding the fact of the dangers of serving warrants. As we know, there were law enforcement officers that were shot at in Charlotte. We came to you and talked to you about that later. This is not the first time that you've had some dicey situations with serving warrants. Talk about the dangers that your law enforcement officers go into every day when doing this type of stuff.
You know, everybody wants to know, is the officer okay? Physically, the officer's okay, but you think about the mental strain that's not only put on this officer, his family, what these law enforcement officers got to go through. They've got to go through this the rest of their life. The state of North Carolina and this country can do better in 2 situations. One, there's no place for mental health right now. Mental health facilities across this nation and across the state of North Carolina have been shut down. This situation here had mental health issues associated with it 6 months ago, but there's nowhere for these people to go. We've had Dorothea Dix, we've had Cherry Hospital, we've had several of these institutions with long care health. They're shut down. Politicians and the people of America and the people of North Carolina don't want to talk about it. They tried privatization, they're shut down, and now that's a serious look. It puts every citizen in North Carolina and any person in America in jeopardy. As my jail over here probably has 70–75% of those people are either on drugs or either they're in there for mental health. And mental health is a situation that we need to correct immediately because it's demising communities. As in this case, I've got law enforcement officers that will live with this the rest of their life.
Had your deputies responded to this residence before for similar situations?
They had responded to it for a situation earlier in the year where there were threats of self-hurt. And that's one of the things where if you have mental health facilities and things of that nature that are available, you can get people help.
Will this man be facing charges, and if so, what? And are there other people who have been arrested and charged?
This gentleman will be arrested and charged, and it's a lone occupant here or a lone person that did this, and obviously he's going to have charges brought up against him.
He had a firearm, correct?
He did have a firearm, and he did fire the firearm.
Was it like a handgun or a pistol?
It was a handgun.
How many people were in the house?
There was none at the house when I arrived after midnight. However, now at the onset of it, I don't know if anybody was in the house. I have not talked to my officers that secured the scene, but to my knowledge, there was nobody in the house, but I did speak with the defendant, and he said that one person was in the house, but that was not true.
What about the estranged wife? I mean, if it was a domestic?
She was out. She had went to the magistrate's office to take out a warrant, and then I guess she had went to a safer location.
Can I just clarify, so your deputies were already going out there to issue the warrant because the estranged wife had put one out, right?
That is correct.
But then they got a call that something was going on, so that's why more units responded at the same time?
The magistrate, when they were taking out the warrant, there overheard phone calls of him being very irate, and the deputy thankfully called other cars and said, hey, you might want to come over here and give us a backup on this.
So in that situation, the estranged wife would have been taking precautions and measures to ensure her safety, right? By going to the magistrate's office
Absolutely.
and letting them know of this situation. I mean, and that kind of leads us into more domestics on the rise as well, right?
You know, that's what's so dangerous about law enforcement. Two things are the most dangerous. Well, actually, there's three of them. One's driving a car, which simply we know that. But the two assaults is a vehicle stop in a domestic situation. We go to domestics day after day after day. We go to several of the same residents day after day, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. And then you don't never know when this is going to turn violent as it did this situation. And that's what I say, these are true heroes, these law enforcement officers. They go, put their lives on the line. Their families know that they're putting their lives on the line. And as a few months ago, we were working with 2 and 3 officers short per shift, and that would have been a situation where it could have been a grave difference in what's happened today.
Could you speak on the, and without revealing too much of the investigation, which I know is still ongoing, just what goes through an officer's mind when they have to make that quick decision, and just how that weighs on them, or how it weighs on heading into any situation like this?
You know, it's a situation where that officer gets up and goes to work and he puts his firearm on, and he never knows if he's going to have to pull that firearm. He touches that door to go outside, to go to work. He leaves his family and he don't know if he's coming home. It's one of the most dangerous jobs in America today. If you look across the demise of this country, look in these inner cities with the violence on the rise, and I will go back to it. Mental health and our drug abuse across this country is what's pushing this. You have more toxins out here today than ever before. You've got more of the stronger drugs out here today that are taking lives at an alarming rate. That's one of the things that we're facing, and law enforcement officers are facing it daily, from the street cop here to the FBI agent in Washington, D.C.
How many shots did the deputies fire?
There were several shots fired. The defendant was struck multiple times.
By one deputy or more?
There was 2 deputies,
Deputies firing?
2 deputies fired.
And the home in question, was it the home of both the suspect and the estranged wife? Were they both still listed as living there together?
This was a prior residence of both of them. I think the wife had left the home and he had maintained residence here at the house on Reagan Store Road.
Deputies, in addition to 2, also ended up responding?
When I got there, there were several officers on scene, but I think at the onset of it, there was maybe 4 deputies, possibly 5 deputies, but maybe 1 come up later.
About what time, sir?
It was right after midnight.
Who are the deputies that fired these shots?
The deputies are Sergeant Salazar and Lieutenant, that was Walker, which was the lieutenant on the shift, and the sergeant on the shift. And
Yeah.
Sergeant Salazar, he was involved in the previous one about 6 months ago, that's correct?
that is correct.
Can you say what came of that case?
He was cleared by the district attorney's office and by the State Bureau of Investigations and the Internal Affairs group. That's what we want to go back to. Look at the dangers that this officer is going through. He's reeling from one incident. Obviously, we get him EAP and all assistance that we can, but the long-term effects of it when a man retires. We have all these different benefits for soldiers and for other type people. Law enforcement's one of the things where it's a daily struggle with the things that are going on and what they're seeing, from traffic accidents with kids involved in it, the homicides, to this officer-involved shooting.
SBI is investigating.
The State Bureau of Investigation is investigating it.
Can you help us what the procedure will be to investigate? Will they tell you something, or will the DA? And do y'all have an internal team in which y'all are investigating?
The basics, the way that these investigations are conducted, Nash County Sheriff's Office does an internal investigation through our Internal Affairs Division. The State Bureau of Investigation will do a criminal investigation completely by themselves, and that is separate and apart from our internal investigation. And the district attorney will be apprised on the SBI investigation, and we will look at internally. Internal investigations are looked at through the sheriff's office, and the SBI investigation, after the investigation is complete, will be turned over to the SBI. So investigation will be turned over to the district attorney and to the sheriff's office for us to look at their investigation too, and then we will compile those together.
Is your internal investigation in progress as we speak?
It is in progress as we speak.
The suspect didn't strike any deputies.
He did not strike any deputies.
Can you tell us anything about the injuries to the suspect?
He has injuries in the upper extremities and the lower extremities.
How many shots did this suspect fire?
To my knowledge, I think he fired one shot, and that is still under investigation this time, but it is known that one shot was fired.
What's his condition right now?
He's in stable condition.
When you guys responded to this call, you said sometime before midnight. I mean, it's no secret that the Nash County Sheriff's Office has a shortage of deputies anyway. You know, you said you had several deputies there. I mean, I guess you can speak on this, that left a lot of the county, which is fairly large in size, unmanned.
You know, 543 square miles, and you have 5 officers patrolling this county. It's a very dangerous situation. But I will take this opportunity and give credit where credit's due. Our county manager has afforded us to have deputies paid overtime to put them out there so that we have safety with numbers. And in this situation, this is a direct example that I was speaking 6 months ago. You cannot go short with deputies. You can go short with a office worker, and somebody might not get a piece of paper that they need that day, or they might not get a service that they need, but they'll get it tomorrow. This is a deadly situation, and you can't play with that because officers and people can lose their lives. And thankfully, the county manager has assisted us with paying deputies overtime until we get back fully staffed.
I'm gonna check into the corrections anyway, but just before I go check it, does this man have a prior record and does he have a record in Nash County?
He does have a prior record, and I had spoke earlier, there had been calls for service there before, and this is one of the situations where I'll reiterate again, mental health facilities in the state of North Carolina and across this nation need to be stood up, and they need to be available to people.
Were there calls this year to that resident?
There was calls this year, or either at the end of last year, but I think it was this year.
And does that record include prison by chance?
I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said, does his prior record include being incarcerated?
I don't know if there was any incarceration associated with it, but I do know that there was a threat of violence to himself or others when we went before.
I was also curious if he had been through the state system or if he also had been in your jail at one time.
I have not researched that yet. It happened at 12:30 last night. We're trying to take care of our officers and trying to secure our investigations, and I've not been privy to that information
But
yet.
it is accurate, you'd never seen him before.
I've probably seen everybody in the county. I probably didn't remember him.
If you'd run across him before.
Right.
So
Or if he
the-
was familiar with the apartments.
The Lisa Drive residence, that's not the residence, that's the residence that's listed currently on his driver's license, correct? But that's not the residence where this happened.
That is the residence, 2,000 block of Regis Store Road. Regis Store Road. If you drive US 64 towards Rocky Mountain, get off on Old Carriage Road, which is RP 1603, I think, turn left, travel down to the intersection, turn left on Regis Store Road. It's before you reach RP 1003.
Earlier, it showed a different address in Nashville.
It was the 2,000 block of Regis Store Road.
Okay.
And that's how you pronounce it, Regis?
Regis.
Can you simply just give us the spelling of his last name? You said James, 52-year-old James.
The last name spelling is B as in boy, R as in Robert, E as in Edward, H as in Henry, E as in Edward, I as in Ida, and N as in Nora.
And can you provide again the name, initials, the spelling of the lieutenant?
Lieutenant Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R.
Can you say his
What's
first
the
name?
first name?
I'll get you his complete name.
Is there anything he can add?
And are they on leave with pay at this time?
They are on leave with pay at this time.
Can you pronounce his last name?
James Bream, and if I've messed that up, I'm sorry, but some of these names I don't know how to pronounce.
Is there any damage to the vehicles or any other damage to any damage to property out there?
I'm sure there's probably some damage, collateral damage around somewhere. If you've got bullets flying, it's a very bad situation. It's a scary situation, and it's not safe for anyone that's in that environment that's going on. But to my knowledge, I don't know anything that was substantial that was hit other than the suspect.
Were there any residences directly across the road?
This is in a subdivision,
Oh,
or in
okay.
various houses.
So
in-
did he fire, you say, from what part of the house?
He was on the outside of the house from the back, walking around the back.
Out the back door?
And no, not out of the back door. He had walked around to confront the officers on
So
the
he
front.
came from around the back of the house?
And thankfully, there was 2 officers standing at the corner of the house, saw him, advised him to drop the weapon, shots were fired, and they returned fire.
Were there any houses that,
Yes, ma'am, it's a bad situation,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's a deadly threat.
And I was gonna say, this comes on the heels of what happened on August 11th, when I think you told the Rotary, and I reported it, that he had to go in the situation. Well, we didn't know until went in that he had killed himself.
You know, and that's the things that a lot of people don't see. I was told a few months ago in a meeting that, well, everybody's not safe. You know, when we come to work, it's not safe. My officers, and there some of them here today, had to go in this home, as you're just speaking about, where a person had killed 2 people. And then he took his own life, but we did not know that at the exact moment. And they've got to go in. Law enforcement today is under more scrutiny than ever before. They have to make split-second decisions, and it's a life and death. It's a very dangerous operation, and you wonder why we're short today, law enforcement across this nation. Maybe we need to look at what they're having to go through every day.
Was there any indication in this case that alcohol or drugs or both may have played a factor?
I'm sure. And mental health.
But exactly, medical with that, would they, I guess they would draw blood from it in the hospital to run a test on it to see?
I'm sure that they will, and that will be part of the investigation.
So you don't doubt it?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Get them their full names. And if you will, get a file picture of them.
And I'll send this out.
Okay.
What's that?
What's that? I like the things.
Thank you. We're going to do details.
6 weeks. You met him.
What's that? Would it be the same one?
Well, I can't take a picture of myself.